unquote meet you guys over Zoom. The audience over here, I think, is pretty broad. I think Summer and the GameX team have done a great job of putting this together. But when I was going over the audience list, it was a little challenging to figure out what kind of scope I need to maintain for this talk, because we can cover so many different topics and there's only so much we can cover within 30 minutes. Let me give you guys a quick background on my end, and then also tell you what kind of scope I'm thinking of covering for this, because the topic that Summer had for this particular talk was whether Pakistan can be the next gaming capital. For anyone to take a stab at that is probably not a 30-minute, but maybe a 1 week long session to figure that piece out. We'll see what we can cover in 30 minutes. So for my background, really quick, I head up the technology and partially the strategy teams on Lions. And for those who do not know who or what Lion Studios is, it's one of the world's largest mobile gaming publishers by volume at this stage. I think it's second only to Voodoo in terms of volume. On the Pakistan side, which is more local, I head up Mindstorm, which is one of the oldest, and more established studios within the country. It's done well for itself, and we have a team that's been in the gaming space for, I'd say, over 10 years per senior employee. So a lot of significant experience in the local industry. So with that being said, for the background, coming to this particular topic, which is, hey, can we establish Pakistan as a gaming capital? Interestingly, it's a problem that we at Mindstorm and then other colleagues in the industry within Pakistan have been trying to solve. And I wanted to highlight that given we have 30 minutes, we won't be able to do a deep dive into any one particular segment or vertical, but rather I'd say the talk would be intended more towards people looking to understand the Pakistan ecosystem somewhat, and what it takes to build an ecosystem, and how we might enter that ecosystem. If there are other follow-up questions regarding any of the other areas that I may touch on, please feel free to drop me a message on the chat. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. One second. All right. So the question, right, which is, Pakistan, is it the next gaming capital? And again, as I said, that's a very, very broad question. And I personally don't think it's necessarily the right question to immediately answer, because I do not think any one country or area can be the gaming capital of the world, because we have to understand what gaming is. And again, this is for people who are looking to break into the industry, which is the core foundational pillars of an ecosystem, which is the new people coming in. We have to understand what the games market really is. And when we say, hey, I want to make games, or I want to get into the gaming market, and you look at this number, it's 160, 170, 180 billion dollar market, depending on who you speak with. That is just staggeringly large, right? By any means, it is just phenomenally a large market. Just for context, for example, the entire AI market in the world right now is, I think, at about $60 billion. I think all of the movie market and film and industry is about at $14 to $20 billion. So this is just a very, very large market. And if you look at the components that form this market, there's console gaming, PC gaming, there's smartphone and tablet gaming, and then there's the mobile segment. Each of these represents a very large business in of itself. So when we say, hey, gaming, I want to make sure that we understand that we're referring to what kind of gaming. Breaking into any of the non-mobile gaming segments is a very daunting and challenging task. Some of us in Pakistan and many other places, of course, have tried it. To break into a non-mobile gaming ecosystem right now, market, requires a lot of capital. There's a massive number of barriers of entry to get into that particular market. Earlier in the day, you heard from Shehryar. He was one of the initial founders within Pakistan to try and do that with a game. This is for the local people who might not have heard about it, called Shera Jat. To be honest, it was like this funny Punjabi game on the PC. Phenomenal work for its time. This is back in 2004 and 5. Mindstorm did the same with a cricket game. We actually ended up making something that was viable. It became the game for the ICC World Cup back then. But again, this was very hard to break into. So all of us then tried to actually address the mobile market, because the barriers to entry in the mobile market were low, easier to get into as a market grew. Also a $77 billion market, so very large, not a small market by any means. So I'm going to rephrase the problem to saying, hey, can we be a leader in this particular segment? The problem is when you dive in, and this is a lot of information, I don't expect you to go through it. Of course, professionals in the industry have already seen this. For those who are seeing it for the first time, when you say, hey, I want to get into the mobile games market, most studios or most companies will be like, cool, that's it. I'm in the mobile games market. I'm going to come in, I'm going to make a game. And that is not the right lens to apply to entering the mobile gaming market. If you take the mobile gaming market itself, when you're looking at $80 billion of a market size, it's going to have a lot of sub-segments within that market. That is a natural outcome of such a large market. And each segment of this market, for example, arcade or casual or core or mid-core, for those who are not familiar with that, is it's a different kind of beast and a different kind of company to make a game for that segment. So again, just saying I want to get into the mobile gaming market or have Pakistan or any country or any city or any team address the mobile games market is too broad of a problem statement. And with the barrier to entry, what I mean to say is that you generally need large teams for some of these segments, like the casual segment, like the simulation, not simulation necessarily, but core and mid-core, for example, you need teams of 40 to 50 people, sometimes more, sometimes less, but usually, tens to sometimes even hundreds of millions of dollars to address that opportunity in marketing spend. Again, not a very good problem statement to have for an emerging economy like Pakistan, right? So how do we further segment this? How do we find an inroad into this system? We need some alleyway to get into the mobile gaming system. And for backdrop, many people within Pakistan and studios within Pakistan have tried breaking into this from different angles, coming in from the arcade side, from the mid-core side, again at Mindstorm and some of the other companies you will hear about today over the course of the conference. Some have successfully done so and some very unsuccessfully, but they've tried. More recently than not, a segment has spawned that is called the hyper-casual segment. You see it here at the bottom of the screen. The hyper-casual segment is a subset of the mobile gaming market. And this segment, if you look at the actual in-app revenue, is a very small segment, looks like $100 million segment. But if you add in the ad revenue you can generate from hyper-casual, it's roughly a $3 billion market you're looking at. Anything that's a $1 to $2 to $3 billion market is a very viable market for an industry to form around. Investors become interested in that industry, companies can scale up, you have meaningful exits. And so hyper casual actually is a very interesting segue to allow us to get into this market. And why specifically? Why is hyper casual and easy? And to answer that, of course, again, as I said, the professionals already are very aware of this. For new people trying to understand the space, hyper casual is a very simple, easy, lightweight mechanic and easy to understand product. To understand and to build a type of game, which you can see on the screen over here. These are somewhat dated examples back in the day, I think from 2019 and 2020. But if you open up the App Store today, look at the top 10 games at any stage, you will see very similar looking products. So these products are generally very easy to make. They aren't, they're lightweight, they require a small team to actually build, but they also tend to monetize really well. So building a game like this, not very hard, and therefore allows us to enter the market, right? And so let me talk about exactly why I think this is a good space, a good segment to pick for an emerging economy to try and enter the market. First off, the team size. The team size is extremely small, right? Traditional games have very large teams, and hyper casual teams are typically 1 to 2 to 3, maybe max 4 people, not more than that. What that allows you to do is to build a very small unit, a very small company that has a low cost, low footprint with short development cycles to iterate on product very quickly. And that is the recipe to create kind of the primordial soup for an ecosystem. I'll take a shot at goal. You'll take a shot at goal. She'll take a shot at goal. Multiple people start taking shots at goal, and that starts spiraling one on top of itself to eventually maybe hit escape velocity, right? So first off, team sizes are small. Second off, I mean, what you're looking at here is a Pocket Gamer excerpt. I'm not going to walk you guys through a SWOT analysis of hyper casual. Here's the TLDR of hyper casual, all right? It's quick, number one. Number two, it's cheap. Number three, it's easier. It's not easy. It looks easy. And you will hear about this later on in the conference over the course of the day and tomorrow as well. It's easier relative to the other segments. And it makes money. If you look at these things, quick, cheap, easy, makes money, it's something that an investor can say, fine, cool, I can try this. Or someone can say, I can try this. And that is what's required to try to get your foot in the door to start building an ecosystem, right? An immediate question for the uninitiated would be, hey, when it makes money, how much money does this make? This is public information available online. If you just start doing some digging, it's a natural question to ask. Hyper casual games make anywhere in the range of $1 to $10 million per product, per successful product, right? This is a big attraction. Whoa, okay, I could make a game in a month, maybe 2 months max, maybe 3 months, and I make $1 million. Wow. It allows people to flock to this problem and say, hey, look, I'm going to come in, investors come in, developers come in, marketers come in, everybody wants a piece of that action. The reality, of course, is somewhat different. This is probably what it looked like in 2019, but the market has changed and evolved. I'll walk you through a very quick example. Not for recent, but just generally, when you say, hey, the game is going to make $1 million, that's all fine. But it costs money to actually market the game. And it costs a significant amount of money to market a game. And that money in this example, and this is a typical example that you might see for a successful hyper casual game, quote unquote, I'd say mildly successful. True successes are $5 to $10 million type of games. And there are games like Aqua Park that have made more than that. Some of the studios that we work with, of course, within Lion, several studios have hit that number. And even within Pakistan, some studios have hit that number, which I will share more with you later in this talk. But you can look at the math here, right? So $1 million, $800,000 in marketing, you're left with $200K. Say you signed a deal with a publisher and the publisher said, hey, I'll give you 40%. You're left with about, in fact, it's not even 80,000, right? In this case, sorry, it's $40,000, right? Which is, sorry, it's $80,000, which is not much. $80,000 for a developer, and per game, you're like, all right, that's not bad. I can make one game and get $80,000, but that's not the full story because your hit rate is not every single game, right? An accepted number in the market right now is about 1 in 10 games. And again, this is a thumbs up. Other people see different hit rates. Some never see a hit. Some see more than this. But loosely speaking, what we've seen on our end is around this number. So on the average, a developer will make maybe one hit a year, maybe earn $80,000 in that year, right? Not super sexy if you are in the United States and trying to pay salaries and trying to keep your lights on. But if you are in an emerging economy where costs are low, such as Pakistan, a 3-man team or a 2-man team earning $50,000 or $80,000 a year is a great start. It allows them to stay in the game to try and actually find the next big win. So this becomes a significant, I'd say, fueling mechanism to kickstart the ecosystem, right? Now, the problem is that, cool, this is easy to make. Anybody can get in the game. Games make money. They look like this, not super hard. I can kind of make the art. I can get 3 people together. So what happens? Everybody and their mom try to get into the game, and pun intended. And so over the last 2-3 years, what you started to see is that the supply of hyper casual has gone through the roof. A lot of hyper casual games coming out. You can see it on the store. You can see it on the top 10, top 20, top 50, top 100 listings. Lots of hyper casual products actually right now in the market, right? Unfortunately, like any market, the hyper casual market is also subject to market forces. Every market in the history of the world has followed this curve, barring maybe a few where there's a monopoly or whatnot. But when you have product and there's demand for product, when there's excessive supply, at some stage will start waning. Again, this is my personal opinion, the jury is out there whether demand for hyper casual is going to drop or not. But even if the demand for hyper casual stays flat, which means or grows, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying here is that the supply for hyper casual, because it's super easy to do, has gone through the roof. There's just too many developers everywhere in the world trying to do this. So say Pakistan or an emerging economy comes in and says, cool, I want to get into the space, or we should actually try to push the ecosystem to get into the space. What happens is that we are now in a red ocean. We are in a very heavily competitive market. And when you're in a heavily competitive market, the marketing costs go high, cost of business goes high, and margins get squeezed, right? So we're a little late to the curve. a little late to the game over here, from a starting point of view. But there are many developers in Pakistan who have already, kicked that off and have found success. Mindstorm being an example of that as well. What I'm sharing here next is that if truly we were in a saturated market, which is the right-hand side of this curve, then you wouldn't see volume growing a lot. This is validated by industry trends. You can look it up at Sensor Tower. There's publicly available information. What I'm showing here is the overall download volume in the hyper-casual space for the top hyper-casual publishers in the world right now. And if you look at the aggregate graph, it actually is not growing. Month on month, quarter on quarter, it's kind of flatlined, right? And so it's a viable argument to make at this stage that hyper-casual is possibly flatlining. However, it's still a very viable industry because of the reasons I shared before. So it's not like you don't want to do it. People are still pushing for it. But there's a lot of interest now coming into possibly newer ground as well over here. What that is here's an example of some of the things that are going on in the industry. And I'll give you so hyper casual is one, but the industry that we're in, which is the gaming industry, actually is moving a mile a minute. So coming back to the original question, which is, hey, can we build an ecosystem over here? Building an ecosystem, if the industry wasn't extremely fast moving, say I was, I don't know, getting into laptop manufacturing, right? Or the semiconductor industry. Those industries take a very long time to evolve. So now I can have an investor come in and make a meaningful investment over time. I can build a fab, I can build a factory, I can build a blah, blah, blah. It'll take 10 years for me to actually establish. And then I know that industry isn't going anywhere. Mobile gaming, very, very different, right? You wake up the next day, the industry can look completely different. And so a big part of building an ecosystem or even a company, which is a subset of the ecosystem, is being aware of what is happening in the market at any one given point, right? Few things that you'll see right now is there's a lot of seminal work happening in the AAA mobile gaming space. When I say AAA, what that means is that the big publishers who've typically been purely console and purely PC have woken up to the mobile gaming opportunity and are coming in with big marketing dollars and big IP into the mobile space. That is only going to grow because mobile has become a mobile first platform now for many of these publishers. What that means is that as an independent developer, you start seeing more pressure because the big guys come in with more marketing dollars and they tend to push you out. So this is a challenge to watch out for. Other things that have happened in the industry there's a lot of privacy changes that have come about recently. Of course, all the industry folk know this very well. But for the new people looking at this, what I'm trying to share is that imagine you were building a building and you were like, I need to invest in real estate. Cool. Real estate is cheap over here. Cool. I'm going to buy real estate. Cool. And then an earthquake comes along. And the earthquake, what it does is it blows all your plans out of the water, right? So big changes in the privacy laws are kind of like that. And Facebook has been subject to that. Companies as large as Facebook or Meta now, AppLove and all the larger companies have been subject to the privacy laws, and that has been problematic. It has reduced margins and ability to market. New things happening right now in the market that you should be aware of. NFTs have gone through the roof. Axie Infinity, they raised $150 million. It's a Vietnam-based company, three years old, right? Bordering 4 now. They are a $3 billion company in a very short amount of time in terms of valuation. That is pretty insane. And particularly it's pretty insane because it's a brand new area. So the emerging economies and emerging technologies and emerging markets all can combine. So I'm saying hyper casual, while a viable existing path to building an ecosystem, it sometimes you have to skip a generation. Maybe the path forward here is to say, hey, look, we just skip this entire hyper casual and traditional gaming ecosystem, and everyone within this emerging economy, which is Pakistan, jumps on the NFT bandwagon. It's a viable area to look at because you have success. Another example is this company called MPL. This is a much lesser known company that many people would not have heard of. It's called the Mobile Premier League. What this is an esports gaming company in India, 3 years old, also worth $2.5 billion. In 3 years, man, this is pretty freaking nuts. It's a mobile gaming company. They just raised a $150 million round, right? Simple mobile esports in in the Indian market, not even in the global, just the global market. So what I'm sharing with you is that there's many more opportunities outside of what we see traditionally right now in the space that have emerged and that are showing a lot of promise. Of course, the ecosystem is changing. Netflix got into gaming. The jury is out there on what that will look like for us in the future. And the market size has, scaled up to about 3 million unique mobile gamers, 3 billion, which is, close to half the population of the earth. So very viable market, but we don't need to think traditionally to build an ecosystem. We can think out of the box, looking at some of these examples. All of that being said, is this pie in the sky talk, right? Is this even possible to take a country or an economy that is not super successful in this space and actually build a multi-billion-dollar industry out of it, right? Here's an example of a place not too far from Pakistan, not too different from Pakistan, in fact, very similar to Pakistan in many ways, that has done it. Istanbul and Turkey, are now touted as the new Silicon Valley of game development. And rewind the clock 5 years ago, that was absolutely not the case, right? So how did this happen overnight? And I'll talk about that in how to build an ecosystem. But the story, more or less goes like this, which is Gram Games, small team, one game called 1010, got bought out by Zynga, $250 million. The game did really well for Gram Games. Zynga, of course, had struggled over time historically, but they're starting to do well now. Following that particular acquisition, so a company in the ecosystem exited. They sold for $250 million, right? Following that, a few years later, there was a much larger acquisition within Turkey, $1.8 billion for Peak Games. These guys had two primary games, Toy Blast and Toon Blast, that was in the market. And this is a gigantic acquisition, right? You have a unicorn acquisition coming out of an emerging economy. This was a game-changing moment within the Turkey ecosystem. A lot of the founders and employees and early employees from Peak then made a lot of money. And they got put out back into the ecosystem and went and started new companies. Examples of those companies are in front of you, right? So one company, Rollic, and Rollic wasn't necessarily all ex-Peak, but Rollic now is a hyper-casual gaming company, got nothing to do with Peak. Peak was in terms of the business they were in, Peak was a match 3 focused company. Rollic was purely hyper-casual. Again, Rollic is 3-4 years old, and Rollic got bought out by Zynga again. So Zynga made 3 acquisitions in Turkey because it won. So it's kind of like Zynga is pulling this generator wire, generator ki taar khench rahe, more or less in Urdu, which is like I'm kickstarting the ecosystem, right? And boom, it did get kickstarted. And a big example of that is Dream Games. Dream Games is a recently founded company, is an ex-Peak employee founded company. So Peak Games made money, people eventually left, made a company called Dream Games, did another match 3 games in Turkey. This company, very young, very new, made a super high quality product. You could not and cannot avoid its ads right now. The game is called Royal Match. And these guys are also $1 billion company. And so Turkey is looking at multiple unicorns in a period of 3 or 4 years, right? And as a result of that, all the investors are pretty much, salivating on this, right? So there's a lot of investment capital that's gone into Turkey. Just to date, within 2021, we've had about $250 million in mobile gaming investment done in Turkey. So this is an example of an ecosystem that actually did get kickstarted and is young, but has found success. There's so many more companies that we know of and that I know personally that have made tens and 50s of millions of dollars that are not on this list. So it's a very burgeoning and up and coming ecosystem right now within Turkey, right? Cool. So it's been done not too far from Pakistan, right? Coming back to the original question of this topic, which is, can we make a mobile gaming ecosystem within Pakistan? And I'm sorry, I'm sure there's Q&A coming up, and I'll address that right after I finish. I've just got a few more slides, promise. So, all right. Again, so this is a thought on how to create a general technology ecosystem, and this is then applied to mobile gaming. For an ecosystem to work, there are multiple pieces. This is, of course, a very simplified view, but for the sake of this conversation, a simplified view helps, right? Which is, hey, you've got new businesses that get formed on the left. That new business becomes successful somehow, and we'll talk about how, right? That new business grows either into a product company or a service company that then has an exit and exits, right? So imagine you're a new business becomes a product or service company, you have a big exit. I've put $1 billion. It doesn't have to be $1 billion. It could be $100 million. It could be $50 million. It could be $10 million, right? Point is, you're kickstarting the ecosystem. You have product companies that exit. And when I say product companies, and you see the product company circle is larger than the services company, it is very hard to exit a service company. Services companies end up being a lifestyle business. So, hey, if I'm just doing work for another client, that's fine. I'm going to have more or less linear growth and more or less build a lifestyle business. It's good for the ecosystem, but it's very difficult for a service company, unless you're like a Tata Infosys level scale, which is once in a lifetime opportunity to have a unicorn level exit, right? Product companies, on the other hand, can be 5, 10, 15, 20 people, and boom, could actually create a lot of value. Case in point, WhatsApp, 10 people, $17 billion exit or whatnot, right? Back in the day. So again, very possible for this to happen. Assume that a product company gets an exit. The upside of that is that it creates wealth in the ecosystem. The people who are part of that company walk away with $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, $100 million. I don't care, take your pick, right? But they walk away with wealth. And when they walk away with wealth, what you'll see is, and not a lot, like if we're here on this call, many of us are probably not worth $100 million. It's hard to be that way. But having spoken and been around people like that, what you'll see is that when you achieve that level of success, you have an innate need and feeling to want to give back. These people tend to give back and participate because they've been there. They've been through this grind. They know what it's like to build a new business, to scale, and that's right. And they see themselves in the younger generation coming out, and so they want to give back and invest, right? You support that investment then with an ecosystem around that, which is stuff like co-working areas, accelerators, incubators, game-specific entities. And again, I'll talk about a few of those that are happening in Pakistan. Conferences like this, right? These are all new events that are creating synergistic effects right now for multiple people who are at different parts of this ecosystem. So right now we might have an investor on the stock. We might have a very established product company CEO on the stock. We might have completely new business founders who have just started something. We have people here, who are students who are thinking about breaking into the industry. So holding conferences like these or events like these is great to get the wheels turning for the ecosystem, right? And people, if they have made wealth from this, are willing to invest. The goal there is to say, hey, look, can we create a large enough pool of capital and momentum? I'm just putting 1 billion. Again, it doesn't have to be $1 billion in total funding available for the system. It could be 50, 80, $100 million, what have you, to kickstart this, right? And this again then seeds the new businesses. In the case of Turkey, the example is Peak Games. Peak Games made money. Peak Games exited. Founders exited with about 5, 10 million, or not founders, but key people. Key people said, okay, that's cool. I think I can do this again. Investors said, I believe you because you have done this. Done. I'll give you $150 million, value your company at $1 billion. Out comes now a $1 billion business called Dream Games. And then the cycle just keeps on repeating and repeating. And in the wake of this, you have a large number of not unicorn, but 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, $100 million businesses, creating a synergistic net worth of the industry within Turkey, right? So this is 110% viable in Pakistan as well. What does that look like in Pakistan? Where are we? So that was a Turkey story. This is the Pakistan story. Again, obviously, I could not put every single person under the sun in Pakistan on one slide, but I'm just giving you examples here. So on the product side, which is right at the top, the issue with this is we are an emerging economy, all right? So if you want to build a spiral, you have to start from somewhere. Like it's the quintessential age-old problem applied to everything in humanity. Did the chicken come first or did the egg come first, right? In Pakistan, what happened is the chicken came first. All right. And I'm saying that because there was no freaking egg. I'm talking about 2005, 2006, when all these founders came in and said, hey, I want to make a game. I want to build a company. I want to do all this, yada, yada. There was no money, no dollars, no conference, no investor, no game developer, nothing available to you at all to say you want to do this, right? So I remember back in the day when we started, I'd go ahead and talk to people. The conversation would be like, like this wide-eyed look, like I'm smoking pot or something. Like, are you crazy? Like, who builds a game in Pakistan? This is stupid. And in hindsight, they were not wrong. But I think no company and no ecosystem has been ever done without someone being stupid. You have to be stupid in your belief, and then you start. So we started, and Pakistan started from this product side in many ways, in the gaming space. That actually is truly what came first. These are some of the companies that are in that space, and they all have a storied history. Mindstorm was from 2006, to be honest. Along with iTriangle back in the day, we built many games, and we're here right now. It's a successful company. We have products, individual single products that make north of $10 million a year. We're partnered with Lion. We've done fairly well, and we're looking to grow. The story is nowhere over. We're scaling up and growing right now. Tintash, very similar. Tintash tried to address this problem, again, funded around the same time as Mindstorm. They are a hybrid company that do both services and products, and they've had some breakaway products more recently. They also have found a lot of success in some of their games, scaling up in the millions of dollars of range. GameStorm, and so Murad from Stanford's done a great job. GameStorm, Raheel, Usman, again, an older company in Pakistan. They try to address the casual and hyper casual gaming market. They are a subset of a larger conglomerate of companies doing technology. And to be honest, they've done a really good job of staying in the game and pushing and establishing the ecosystem in Pakistan day in, day out. They also are a multi-million-dollar revenue generating company in Pakistan, looking for that one hit. Revolving, this is done by the Zain brothers. You'll probably see them in the conference over the course of the next 2 days. And Amar and Shayan and Saad. So Amar heads this up right now, along with Shayan, I believe, at this stage. And Revolving is addressing this problem of saying, hey, look, you know what? I'm not even going to go for 10 million. I'm going to go straight for a home run. I'm going to go and build the next $100 million product right out the gate, right? So they've raised several millions of dollars in funding. Again, these are all Lahore-based companies. And what they're building is a 4X title to try and actually address a very big, large home run opportunity. If their stuff works out, could be a unicorn product, could be a unicorn company, right? So different way of solving that problem. So kudos to them to really attempt this. Tough, but again, it's all starting from here. And then we've got companies like Game District, Saad Hamid. Again, I would say probably one of the fastest growing gaming companies in Pakistan, and they are also addressing the hyper casual problem and at scale. And I think they might actually crack a very good piece of the market on the hyper casual side to help us grow the ecosystem within Pakistan. The bottom two companies as I've used as examples are VRPlay and Quicksell. These are also very good examples of ecosystem companies, I think founded in 2010 or so. They are not in Lahore. All the top companies were in above the line companies are in Lahore. These two companies are in Islamabad. And why they're special is that they are a byproduct of the very early stage effort that people had put in within Islamabad. And Mohsin, who heads up VRPlay, and Waqar, who heads up Quicksell, were actually both in VRPlay. And VRPlay is not too different from Mindstorm or Tintash in trying to make big games within Pakistan. They've done really well in making those titles. And Waqar, I believe, spun off from VRPlay or broke off. I don't remember exactly, but he formed Quicksell. And Quicksell is a very good example of possible success, a large-scale success in the ecosystem, because Quicksell got bought out, for those who don't know, got bought out by Epic, actually within Pakistan.
So
and they're growing.
I hate to interrupt you. Okay, this has been super fascinating, but we are running out of time.
All right.
Or we have run out of time. Done. Sorry.
Okay. That's the last university. Thank you for the heads up. Right. This is the last slide. So we have this, and then what happened is that many of these companies who found success, some of these people have invested within Pakistan and tried to create accelerators. You'll come across M Labs, Game Train. We've actually partnered at M Labs. Mindstorm has invested about $500,000 right now into M Labs to actually push this forward to help create this ecosystem over here. Investors have come in. Sarmaya Car has invested in Revolving Games. 47 Ventures and invested in Turbo Labs. Techcell is another successful company with angel investment within Pakistan right now. Sorry, Samurai, I was not keeping track of time. Long story short, this ecosystem is definitely up and running in Pakistan. We need to find the next big exit. And if we do, I think 110%, the problem statement is not, can we be the next gaming capital? Can we build $1 billion gaming industry? that's my answer, essentially. I 100% think that we can, and we're definitely on track. So sorry, I had to
thank you
go
so much
again, guys.
No, not at all, Babar. That was really very, very useful, very insightful. But it's just that we do have the next panel. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, if you can hang out for a bit, perhaps respond to the questions in the chat using the chat function. That would be wonderful. If you can do that.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.